Bob, it's been 30 years since the original release of One on One. When was the last time you listened to the album, and how does it make you feel looking back on it?
Actually, I still listen to it often. It's in my iPhone, laptop, and every other music gadget that I have. The classic simplicity and clarity of Earl's melodies are timeless, and I imagine they'll still sound great years from now.
And Earl, what are your recollections?
Well, as I think back, I've listened to the album One on One several times over the years. I'm not really one to play my own records very much, but I would always gravitate back to the One on One album because it was Bob and my record. And I'm just struck by just the beauty of the songs, the simplicity of the songs, and just how comfortable everyone who was recording in the room felt as we were recording these songs. We actually just played this album as a 4 or 5 piece unit, and we played everything from beginning to end 3 or 4 times, and that was the way that it worked. It was nice and easy, and just truly one of my greatest experiences that I've had musically, and it's amazing that it's that long ago now. I can't believe it.
Looking back, what are your memories of the sessions?
My main memory is how smoothly the sessions went. We were striving for a relaxed, natural, live atmosphere and didn't want to overwork the songs, so we basically just let it flow. I think the whole project from beginning to end, including the overdubs and mixing, was no longer than 2 weeks.
I remember at one point, Bob called me and he says, well, do you think we need to record any more songs or record anything over again? Or is it too mellow? And I'm like, well, if you want my opinion, I think it's great. And I didn't see any need to change anything. And I think he was a little bit surprised at what I said because I was so enthusiastic over how well it had turned out. I think that kind of swayed him to not overthink it or overwork it. So those were the type of things that we went back and forth while we were putting the record together.
And how did you feel when the album sales passed 1 million?
Of course, we were thrilled. These days, achieving the 1 million number on an instrumental jazz record seems almost impossible to comprehend. But we did it, and we have that great memory to linger with us forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess the most surprising thing about the sales of the record is that it took the better part of 30 years to go past the 1 million mark. So I guess that's, if you hang in there, anything's possible, But of course, it makes you feel good. It really is a great thing when you think about a million people. It's like there are a lot of cities with 1 million people, especially in the jazz world. That's a very high mark, I would say.
Yeah. So, how did you two start working together?
Well, I was a big fan of Bob James even before I started recording. Very early in my career, I did a tour with him. We did a tour from, I think it was like San Diego all the way to Seattle. And I was really new then, so I was opening up the shows for Bob. And Bob had quite a bit bigger band than I had. But what started happening at the sound checks, we would get together and have sound checks, and all of us would play together. My band and Bob's band. We'd do some jamming during the sound checks. And so after about 3 or 4 shows, we decided we would play some music together every night. And the audience really seemed to like that. And it was just a very easy, casual thing. Nothing really worked out or labored over. So it became a thing that we did, and I got to know Bob a little bit. And it was very much a thing that just kind of fell into place.
Going back to the One-to-One album, what was your inspiration for the recordings?
Well, as I recall, each of us contributed original songs. I don't remember exactly my inspiration. Usually with abstract music, instrumental music, I go to the piano and just try to imagine the artist who's going to play. In this case, I was trying to imagine what it would sound like with Earl playing the melody. We were trying to keep an even balance on this record with both of us making our separate contributions. I always think of the musicians when I compose, so I definitely had Harvey Mason, Gary King, and the other superb musicians in my head during that creative process.
And Earl?
I think we worked on everything separately, at least initially, the pieces. And I think Bob had 3 songs for sure, and there was one really beautiful Spanish melody, Mallorca, I think was the name of the piece. I thought that was a very different type of a piece for him, and it put the record in another place for me, and that's when I kind of decided for sure I was going to use my calypso piece, Kari, kind of as a bookend to that piece, because I never really remembered Bob going in that direction very much. But for this instrumentation, we didn't really want to change the instrumentation. We wanted it to feel like one record. So for this instrumentation, we started laying down grooves, just Harvey, Bob, Gary King, and they came up with something that didn't take it out of the element of the record, but still the melody worked, you know. These are the things that I remember when we were working on the songs. There was some trial and error, but the amazing thing is that we just were able to flow through the music. There weren't a lot of dead ends or delays or you know, second guessing what we were doing. It flowed very well.
Interestingly, I seem to remember that the bonus track on the CD, Jazz Jam, was recorded almost accidentally. How did that come about?
I think what happened is that was just something we were using as a warm-up for the engineer, meaning that instead of running through the songs that we were going to play all day, we just started having a groove. I think what happened is Harvey was playing drums, getting a sound on the drums, and then we all kind of chimed in and created this little groove that was going on. And in the old days, that's how the engineers would actually get all your instruments up to speed. You said, well, play a little bit of this or a little bit of that.
I had forgotten that we recorded that little segment, but rediscovered it when we first decided to include a bonus track on a Japanese release.
So tell us a little bit about the other musicians you brought together who also worked on this album.
Well, Harvey Mason came in from the West Coast, and the rest of the guys were the cream of the crop of New York session players. I had worked with them often on various kinds of recording sessions, jingles, movie scores, TV scores, and no matter what the assignment, they always come up with something special. Their contributions in this case were fantastic, and they're part of the fabric of the sound of One on One.
Well, I tell you, the one of the most magical things is the band that ended up that we recorded the album with is one of the great groups from the 70s and late 60s and on through. Ralph McDonald was on percussion, just one of my favorite people in the world, and a great songwriter. He wrote Just the Two of Us, a bunch of big hits for Roberta Flack. Ron Carter played bass, and he's just like my favorite acoustic bass player of all time, practically. My really good dear friend Harvey Mason played drums, absolutely my favorite drummer. And we had Eric Gale, who played guitar, who also was a friend and just a legendary musician. He played with Richard T. and the group Stuff back in the 70s and 80s. And Gary King, who was just one of the most unique bass players, in my opinion, in recorded music. He was just fabulous. You know, sadly, both Eric and Gary King have passed on, but their contributions on the record and to so many other records, just phenomenal. So I look back on that band and there's just nothing like it. It was really a great overall experience. We did so many things touring after the record came out and after all of the success.
And in this anniversary year, are you still playing together?
Bob and I, we still do shows. We're doing a show in August for almost a week run at the Blue Note in New York. And we've toured. Last year, Bob and I, we went to India together. We played in Venezuela together, Japan. And from time to time, we do festivals and shows in the United States. So it's a great relationship that goes on. And It's just great to have this celebration for this particular year. It's really special.
So, can you tell us more about this great relationship that you two obviously share with each other?
Well, first of all, we're really good friends, and that's probably the most important thing. We have a similar approach to making music. Our tastes in jazz are very similar, I think, and we both strive for a melodic approach in our improvising. We seem to like the same support players also, so choosing a band is pretty easy.
You know, Bob is such a great producer and arranger and writer, and we have a real similar take on melody and how we phrase things, and I think we have a similar chemistry when it comes to improvising. We know how to play off of each other, and it's just some of my best times. It's always been very easy to work with Bob. It's almost like you're not even using your conscious mind at a lot of points in time with the song. You just let it, the music take you where you're going, and it's always been just some of my fondest memories working with Bob over the years.